Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Eden Justice by name. This is Accounting, Banking and Finance Group 5, and we are presenting on critical thinking. In an era overloaded with information, critical thinking is vital for navigating complex challenges, making sound decisions, and avoiding misinformation in both political and academic settings. However, critical thinking is the skill of asking why and how, instead of accepting what we read, hear, or see. The paradox of critical thinking teaches us that the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. We start learning to get answers, but real critical thinking even gives us more questions. Thank you.
To add up to what my colleague said, critical thinking is not just academic skills, but an essential tool for daily decision making, because it teaches us to question assumptions, evaluate evidence, and making reasoned choices instead of blindly following the crowd. Critical thinking is broad. The thesis of critical thinking changes depending on your focus. The most common theses are as follows. In academic research, thesis is the systematic analysis and evaluation of literature, which allows you to identify gaps, strengths, and weaknesses, to build a solid scholarly foundation in education and pedagogy. In everyday problem solving, thesis is that active curiosity, open-mindedness, and logical evaluation prevents cognitive errors and produce better real world. Thank you.
I'm Sanita Bediako, and I'm here to present on Chapter 2. Scholars, philosophers, and government leaders believe critical thinking is very important. It helps people to make better decisions and improve society. Why is critical thinking important? Firstly, it's important to make decisions easy, very easy. The point of critical thinking is it promotes evidence-based policy. This means government leaders should make decisions based on fact and research, not emotion and politics. Again, critical thinking is very important because it helps people make good decisions, encourage government to use facts and evidence, protect people from news and manipulation, make workers problem solvers, help students to understand, apply knowledge instead of using memorization. In one sentence, critical thinking is the ability to think carefully, question information, use evidence, and make logical decisions. That's both individual and society. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm John Abedu, and I'm here to present on why policymakers and leaders are so obsessed with critical thinking, adding up to what my colleague said. Now, one major reason why policymakers and leaders of a nation are so obsessed with critical thinking is that it reduces misinformation in the country. One thing about misinformation is that every misinformation lacks evidence, and critical thinking is all about weighing evidences and proving it. So if we are able to apply these evidences to any information we get, it will help reduce any misinformation. That is to say, it will help reduce any information that lacks evidence. The next point I would like to talk about is that it increases productivity in workplace. Now, imagine as an employee, two people come to your workplace, and one is able to give you the steps to launch a web application, and one is able to, apply the steps, in the sense that he might not be able to communicate the steps, but then he knows the particular steps, the specific steps, that after here I'm going to this place. As an employer, the one you're going to choose is the very one who is able to apply that knowledge, but then just not communicate that knowledge without experiencing it. So one thing critical thinking does is that it helps in the application of knowledge. The last point to talk about under why policymakers and leaders are so obsessed with critical thinking is that it enhances educational outcome. Now, the whole point or the head and tail of critical thinking is that it questions assumptions, why we do this and why we do that, and also try to prove the exactness of an information. Now, if an education is all about receiving papers or receiving degrees, it might not be able to bring better outcome. The reason why, or the main reason why education can bring out a better outcome is when it's linked with critical thinking, in the sense that students will be able to apply the knowledge they receive in their daily lives. Thank you very much.
Earlier in the presentation, critical thinking is a basic necessity in every human being's life. Critical thinking enables individuals to make decisions, even in times of emotions and pressure. So there are some basic factors that hinders people from thinking critically. And such factors are known as the psychological and cognitive barriers. Under these, that is one, you can have the Dunning-Kruger effect. In this factor, people think they know a lot, while they don't know enough. For example, learning a football trick in your school, you think you are the best player, whilst you have a lot to learn. Secondly, that is the intellectual laziness. In this factor, people don't want to think hard enough to find a solution. They think the first one is always the right answer for them. For example, during SHS times, we used to copy our friends' homeworks without trying to solve any questions.
So under the psychological and cognitive barriers, we also have confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is looking for things that agrees with what you already know. And an example is, you think getting first class is as a result of luck. So you are looking for things that agrees with what you are saying. Meanwhile, getting first class is as a result of hard work. And the other one is emotional reasoning. And under emotional reasoning, you are going for something that you feel other than facts. You feel every teacher is corrupt. Meanwhile, that is not the fact.
Earlier in the presentation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I go by the name Abdulrauf Yusuf, and I am presenting on point 4, which is how education and social barriers affect critical thinking. In a case like this, even though our minds have critical biases, schools and society create big internal barriers too. In Ghana and many African countries, education is supposed to help us develop, but the way we learn often stops us from thinking critically. First, there is rote learning. We call it chew and pour. Students just memorize facts and notes just to pass exams, but we are not taught how to understand, question, or solve real problems. So many graduates have certificates but still can't think deeply or critically. Secondly, let's talk about authority difference. In our culture, we respect teachers and elders a lot, which is good, but it means students rarely ask questions about what they are taught. They just accept everything without questioning. Why? Or is this true?
My name is Brian Adespo, and to continue what my partner said, thirdly, we have social conformity. We value group harmony, so people often say, stay quiet, even when they disagree, just to avoid social conflict. This leads to a situation where bad ideas go unchallenged. Finally, we have echo chambers. Social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, their algorithms shows us what we want to see and what we already know. This makes us stay trapped in our own bubble. All these things explain why educated people still fail to think critically. We need to change how we teach and encourage open discussions in our society. Thank you.
My name is Patamia Eden Emmanuel, and I'm here to present on number 5, why education does not guarantee critical thinking. This brings us directly to the core of our paradox, the phenomenon of the educated non-thinker. As a society, we operate under a dangerous myth that the more years a person has spent in an educational institution equates to better and rational thinking. The school system now produces certified workers rather than what have researchers calls a critical spirit. Meanwhile, true critical thinking requires us to actively ask difficult questions, examine facts, and possess rare emotions, willingness to admit they are wrong. Thank you.
My name is Usu, and then I'm here to present on the pathway forward for the matter of critical thinking. So when you say the pathway forward, what are we talking about? It's talking about how we are supposed to move forward as a community, as a people, as a gathering, to be able to think critically and evaluate our decisions. So we can testify to the fact that day in, day out as human beings, we think. With everything we do, there is thinking process. And this thinking process that we put in is what brings out results. And the results can be either good or bad, depending on the elements that point into our thinking. Okay, so what are some of the things that we should be, some of the skills we should develop that should pour into our thinking?
analysis. So when you say analysis, what does it mean? It means that one must be able to dissect or get to know the ins and outs of a situation when it is being presented. That's when you'll be able to know the pros and cons of the situation. With this is the first step, or this is the first great step that one must take into critical thinking. Second one is evaluation. One must be able to objectively determine the true significance, width, or structural condition of a situation by rightly assessing the capability, motives, and empirical validity of the source of information gotten. The inference. One must be able to draw conclusions. Inference means that when you get your problem at hand, you're able to get the analysis, then you get the evaluation, you're able to draw a conclusion. Okay, so when a conclusion is drawn, that's when you'll be able to get a decision out of it.
To conclude this matter, one thing we need to understand is that critical thinking is not something that can be passed from one generation to another genetically, and also it's not a personal trait, but then it's something that needs hard work, dedication, and mental hard work as well. So if a nation wants to develop positively, one thing they need to understand is that every single person, including leaders and citizens, must think critically in the sense that they'll be able to apply the information they have to solve their daily problem. Thank you very much.